First, let me introduce our guests. We have Malcolm Clarke, 柯文斯先生。柯文斯先生是著名的导演，他的拍摄足迹呢是遍布全世界80多个国家。他的作品获得过4次奥斯卡的提名，更有2部作品最终拿到了奥斯卡的小金人。他的作品《Prisoner of Paradise》是2003年唯一一部同时获得奥斯卡最佳纪录片长片、美国导演工会最佳纪录片以及作家工会奖提名的影片。当然，他也获得过很多其他的影视大奖。比如说呢，被称为电视工业中奥斯卡奖的艾美奖，柯文斯先生曾经拿到过16座艾美奖的奖杯。从2015年起，柯文斯先生把他的工作重心转到了中国，专注于中国内容的影像制作，讲中国的故事。Let's welcome Malcolm。我们也非常荣幸请到了资深制片人韩毅。韩导在加拿大卡尔顿大学新闻与传播系获得新闻硕士学位之后呢，他一直致力于中国题材影片的国际合作与发行。他参与制作的影片《善良的天使》《初三四班》《飞虎之心》《千锤百炼》《归途列车》等，在世界范围内获得了众多的奖项，包括金马奖、艾美奖、中国纪录片学院奖、北京电影节纪录单元评委会特别推荐奖、广州纪录片电影节最佳中国制作人等等。除了制片人的身份之外呢，韩导作为导演，他执导的第一部影片《盲行者》第一部就入围了2018年第21届上海国际电影节金爵奖纪录片提名名单的唯一的一部华语的纪录片。让我们欢迎韩导。
I was asked to make a film in China, and the one thing that I knew in my heart was that if I was going to make a film in China, I needed a good Chinese producer, and that's why we went after Han Yi, who had just won the Golden Horse Award for a film that she had made, and which was a very impressive film. And this was a very difficult film to make for a variety of reasons, and Yi made it as easy as possible.
我之前也合作了很多导演，但是柯导真的是一个非常讲究完美的人，然后在现场的掌控是非常的强的。有的时候会有一些导演在现场可能不太知道什么，但他永远知道自己要什么，会让制片的这个难度稍微低一点。
Now let's come to the China stories. So now I think all the people in the world know that China is relevant, China is strong, but may not be everyone interested in hearing these China stories. So they may not be interested in the Chinese culture or how the Chinese system work. They may not be so interested, and maybe they just hear listening to the news, maybe from newspaper, from Twitter. And Professor Wang says that maybe if they hear from the ChatGPT, maybe it's better. But still, actually, people know little about China, about the real China. So in this situation, I think one of the most important things is get people interested to know how the real China looks like. So in this way, what do you think is the opener, is the kind of can opener that get people interested in the China stories?
You want to start?
我觉得可能给他穿一个流行的外衣吧。实际上，我觉得就是全世界对于美国的文化之所以那么认同，或者是说影响那么大，是因为好莱坞这么多年来一直在讲美国故事，对吧？其实他也是在讲主旋律嘛，但是他所有的他的流行文化、他的电影、他的音乐、他的书籍、他的戏剧，所有的一切，我们可能原来在讲的时候会比较官方，之前也只有官方，那我觉得官方的这个叙事这个 narrative 又不符合国际的这个 narrative， 因为两个是在打架的嘛，对吧？官方有我自己的输出，那西方有自己他的 narrative， 这两个其实是不太符合的。我们在做的一件事情就是在想说，我们怎么样可以提供一种 the third narrative which is different from the official China narrative and the Western narrative， 那它外面可能会有一个流行的外衣，就是你怎么让它其实可以成为 entertainment， 那 documentary could be entertaining as well。包括你讲的其他的这些故事，我觉得这个可能是说起讲中国故事，可能是目前或者是在内地看到的比较缺失的一个地方。就我们还是很想很严肃认真的告诉别人，我怎么样，而且尤其是我很强，对吧？但其实第一他听不进去嘛，第二他也会觉得你说的可能太过于枯燥，所以也许这是一个方式。我觉得这是至少是我们尝试的方向，我不知道它是否一定会 lead up to 最后的对于整个中国的这个了解，但至少这个是我们一起努力的方向。
We all know that China's renaissance is remarkable. We know that China has achieved something quite indisputably historic in the last 20 years. I can guarantee that every single Chinese person in this room is living better today than their parents or their grandparents lived. That is no small achievement. It had taken 40 years, and it was a historic change that had happened. It's the first time in history that a country had transformed so profoundly in such a short amount of time. We can say this is fantastic and it's great, and of course it is. It's hugely commendable. The problem is that when you start, when a country of 1.4 billion people emerge from decades, some may say centuries of darkness, it scares the devil out of people in the West, especially the Americans, and to some extent the Europeans, because America is used to being the shining city on the hill. It's swallowed its own Kool-Aid. It has bought into the rhetoric of the American dream. It feels itself to be both morally, intellectually, materially, economically superior to the rest of the world. And when China starts to step out onto the world stage, which is what I have an excuse for making the film that was supposed to be for a few months, for years, because what we didn't understand, and I certainly didn't understand as a naive Western film director, is that if you're going to make a film about China, you have to make a film all over the world. Because today, China is no longer the Middle Kingdom. China is out in the world, in Africa, in South America, all over Europe, everywhere. And so we had to go everywhere to make our film. So what we try to do, because I don't have a huge amount of regard for the present administration in China, but neither do probably millions and millions of Chinese people. But we cannot take away their achievements, and we should not. What I do have a lot of time for is the Chinese people and the Chinese achievement, Chinese culture, Chinese civilization, Chinese history. If people in the West understood China better, I suspect that they might be a little less frightened of the specter of China kind of quote unquote taking over the world. So what we try to do is to tell the truth. We all ultimately, I think, want the same things, both for ourselves and our families and our kids. And we try to tell those stories with emotion, with a true spirit of admiration for the people who have trusted us with their stories, and see if we can kind of pull down a few barriers here and there. It's getting harder to do this, and maybe we can talk about this later. But it was hard with Better Angels because the Americans were against us. But now it's hard because China doesn't seem to want what we want to do. They're more comfortable with a propagandized narrative than they are with any kind of objective emotional truth. So it makes our job a wee bit more difficult, but we wrestled with this and decided that we would try and stay the course for at least another year or two and see whether or not we could still do what we do.